Beto O'Rourke, who came really close to beating Ted Cruz for the Senate race in Texas, is now running for Texas governor. And I think this is important for a number of reasons. It's a test for the left of identity politics, which, of course, Beto purports to represent. We'll talk about that. But the other thing is that he's running as a progressive in a red state. And if Beto can win, it, I think, portends perhaps a progressive future for America. Not good news for us, I don't think. And so Debbie and I thought we would, discuss this phenomenon of Beto O'Rourke. Now, he was a phenomenon the first time. He attracted all this out-of-state money. He was a charismatic character. He'd come skateboarding in to give a speech. I think at one point I saw an article on Mashable, Beto O'Rourke live streamed his haircut. Now, I guess that's a sign of his megalomania, but apparently if anybody was watching, they wanted to see a guy get a haircut. This was apparently a 19-minute live stream.
Well, yeah, this guy. So what really bothers me more than anything about this guy is that he is extremely dishonest about who he is. To this day, I think people still think he's Hispanic because he goes by Beto. And he is not Hispanic, I want to say.
Well, let's point this out. I mean, it's not that he's not half Hispanic. He doesn't have a Hispanic mom.
He doesn't have a Hispanic bone in his body.
So he grew up in El Paso.
Yeah.
Apparently, Beto is like a Hispanic nickname for Roberto.
Mm-hmm.
But his real name is Robert O'Rourke. His father is of Irish descent. His mother's maiden name is Williams, so she's probably Anglo-Irish.
Right.
So this guy has less Hispanic or less Mexican in him than Elizabeth Warren has, right? Yeah, Cherokee.
But he goes down to the Rio Grande Valley, which, as you know, my mother is Mexican. My mom is actually Mexican.
And you actually are.
And I actually have Mexican, have Venezuelan. So I'm actually full Latina. Okay, this guy, not an inch, not anything. Okay, so but what really bothers me is that he panders to Hispanics. He goes down to the Rio Grande Valley and makes people feel like he's one of them. And this is a very common tactic of the left and of socialists to do this. And he does it well. He does it very well because he's a very likable guy. And so I thought we were done with electing likable guys who were on the left. Come on,
I mean, this is a guy who was kind of, in a way, in the Obama mold.
Right.
In fact, he strategically, this is an article you're looking at, and declines to invite Biden to campaign, which is kind of an Obamaite decision, right? It's a shrewd decision. I mean, Biden is not only you made the point that Biden isn't just a loser. He's not just plummeting in the polls, but the Biden deception has been busted.
Right. And so that is what I think he wants to distance himself from, because when Biden ran for president, he lied about who he was. Oh, I'm not a socialist. Well, even his running mate, Kamala Harris. Oh, I'm not a social. I don't laugh like you do. Like, I think you make fun of her a lot better than I do. But anyway, she lied. She said she was not a socialist. And as you know, I've been following socialists for a very long time. I know their scheme. They lie to get elected. And then once elected, boom, your gas prices start going up. Inflation starts going up. They start talking gun confiscation. They love criminals. This is all the same playbook, all of it. So this guy is...
Well, your point is not that he is an honest guy who wants to distance himself from Biden's dishonest scheme.
No.
Your point is that Beto is running his own dishonest racket, and if he associates himself with Biden, it becomes easier to expose both of them as, in a sense, working off of the same playbook.
Exactly right. And again, this whole gun confiscation. So he was on CNN, and he was asked, that his number one campaign was, are you going to take away people's AR-15s and AK-47s? And he said, blank, yeah, I don't like to curse. So hell yes, I'm going to take away your AR-15s and your AK-47s. Now, interestingly, and I mentioned this to you this morning, when a Democrat wants to take away your guns, he wants to take away law-abiding citizens' guns, not the criminals. The criminals run amok. And in fact, he's pro-criminal. So the very thing he's saying, it's the exact opposite, because the criminals get the guns, whether they're legal or not. But the law-abiding citizen who needs to defend himself against these criminals that these guys are letting loose can't get their weapons. And so I think that is important.
There was a Texas rancher who
Right.
came up to Beto and basically said, you're not welcome down here because these are guys on the border.
Right.
And let's think about the dangers that they face, not only of theft, of drugs, of criminal cartels. So these are guys who feel like we need to defend ourselves. And what Beto is saying is that I'm not going to take the guns from the cartels. He has no idea of how to do that. I'll take away the guns from the ranchers, many of them Hispanic ranchers and farmers, so that they can defend themselves against illegals, against criminals, against MS-13, against all the threats that they are routinely subject to.
But see, that's the playbook of the Democrat. They don't go after the criminal because, as we know, criminals can use cars as weapons. They can use knives as weapons. They use guns as weapons. So it's not about the item. It's not about the gun. It's not about the car. It's about the criminal behind it. And they don't address that.
Now, this is a progressive formula that even if in an attractive package, and I think Beto's lost some of the luster he had before. When he ran against Cruz, he had a hidden advantage. And the advantage, I believe, was that the Cruz faction, of the Republican Party had been at war with the Trump faction. And that was
There was a lot of division.
That was the secret weapon that
yeah.
brought Beto really
Right.
close to the finish line. Now, he won't have that
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
governor's race.
Right. Well, not only will he not have that, but people are starting to wake up. People are starting to realize that when they vote for these Democrats, bad things start happening. And I cannot imagine, unless you are living like in a basement somewhere that you don't have access to news,
or in a bubble, in a
In a
gated
bubble.
community where you're not
Yeah, yeah.
affected by it.
Exactly. Then you don't know what they do. But if you today, when people were voting for all of these policies and didn't actually know they were voting for these policies, anyone that drives a car, we drove to the Rio Grande Valley this weekend and coming back, and I said, oh my goodness, gasoline in Texas is over $4 a gallon. That's crazy. That is not something that I've ever experienced in Texas, ever. And so anyone that drives a car, eats food, who doesn't, right, would know that their policies are toxic. And so anyone that would vote for Beto needs to get their head examined.